Maybe you're like me and were told at some point in your life that you weren't going to be able to exercise like other people. At 4 years old, I was told that even though I wanted to play soccer all the time, I wouldn't be able to do it. And I would need to always have my inhaler with me, which is great advice to anyone to this day. But also have to always take it before, during, and after practice games. Thank God my parents had a different idea for me and my relationship with exercise throughout my life. Otherwise, I would have been terrified to exercise since a very young age. But guess what? I figured out how to play soccer year round. I figured out how to become a certified yoga instructor and an elite ultra athlete with asthma. And that's why today on the show, I want to share with you my top 5 best exercises for athletes with asthma that I do on a weekly basis. Well, let's start it off very slow, very deliberate, because I know that if you were told in your life that you shouldn't be exercising at all, you got to be careful exercising because you have asthma. And maybe you have ran into issues where you have done maybe your favorite exercise. Maybe you were playing your favorite sport. Maybe your favorite sport is soccer, maybe it's basketball. And you may have had an issue where exercise did limit you. I know I have throughout my life, even though I have pushed myself and built strong lungs. Let's start off very easy. And if you are an athlete with asthma or someone trying to get back into working out in general, the first thing you should do is integrate walking into your life. Walking or hiking. You know, hiking is just walking, but outdoors. Maybe there's a little bit of elevation game. This is the gateway exercise for anyone that has asthma and for anyone who maybe haven't worked out for a long time. I just recently, just in the past couple of days, I actually took a run with a friend I used to run with all the time. And he shared with me that he hasn't worked out very much in the past year. And I told him, I'm like, hey, well, let's start somewhere. Let's start with walking and then we'll throw some running in. And that's what we did. Okay. And this is the same thing. When you are building lung capacity, when you are getting used to really working out, exercising with asthma, the goal is to progressively overload our lungs and our bodies so that we incrementally get better. And that's what walking/hiking allows us to do. And then the second thing, you can really turn this into running. So we want to turn our walking/hiking into running. And what we really can do, and this is my favorite thing, whenever I'm going after new mileage or a harder workout, a harder running workout than I've ever done, what I do is I combine these two. And this is really how I got into running in the first place. I first got really into hiking. I love being in nature. I love hiking up things. I love hiking mountains. I like climbing 14,000 foot peaks. I live in Colorado and we climb 13,000 and 14,000 foot mountains. We have over 50 of them in our state. I got into hiking back in 2015 and I didn't really get into running until 2020, so 5 years later. So 5 years of really getting into hiking. And I decided, you know what? Maybe I can start hiking faster. I can start jogging. There's really a continuum here. So what I like to look at is we got walking, walk or hike, put on this side, continue. And the other side, we have running. So what I like to do, and I do this with all my training, we're always somewhere on this continuum. In the center is a jog. So we don't even start, quote unquote, running, because when I say running, I'm actually talking about jogging as well. It's about halfway. So this is really a zero, or you're barely moving, you're walking, you're moving very slowly, would be here. And then this would be kind of a 5. We'll call this 1 since you are moving a bit. Then we have a 5 here. and this would be a 10 out of 10. This is a sprint. Our goal, especially as athletes with asthma, when we're getting into exercise, we're going to start here in the walk/hike. And then we're going to slowly move towards a jog. And the great thing is, you can jump around on the continuum. Maybe one day you're hiking for a lot of it. Maybe you're somewhere in this range. And then next time, I'm going to push all the way here. And then I'm going to come back to here. And this is what we really want to do. This is how we strengthen our lungs. This is how we progressively overload. This is how we build capacity. And then some days, maybe you're just here. And that's where you are. That's key with exercising with asthma and exercising when you haven't exercised in a long time. We want a baseline, start with walking or hiking, then we want to move it up. And maybe you'll be like me and you'll be like, you know what? I want to start hiking faster. Or you know what? No one really wants to hike with me anymore. So I'm going to start running so that I can finish these hikes faster. That's what happened to me. I started trail running 14ers, at least downhill, with 1 or 2 friends versus there used to be 15 to 20 of us that would go hike one of these things. Once it dropped just a couple of us, we'd hike up it and run down. And then we would actually start running up it and then running down. The next piece that I think is just, when I don't do it, I feel it, is HIIT, high intensity interval training, or HIIT. I have been such a proponent of HIIT, high intensity interval training, for about 10 years. Over the past year, I went from doing this at least 2 to 3 times a week to 0. And I have felt it asthmatically. HIIT is so good for you, but you got to be really careful with how intense you get. And we're actually talking about HIIT right here on this continuum. So when we're starting here, then we go up here for a bit and then we come back down. It's an interval of high intensity. A few weeks ago, I did my first legitimate HIIT class in about a month. That's been my cadence lately in the past year or so, because I'm running 6 days a week training for ultras. I just stopped doing HIIT. About a month ago, I did my first true HIIT class in years, where I pushed hard and then I rested. I've been doing them over the past year about once a month, but I didn't push. And I felt it, like the true HIIT. And I was keeping track of my heart rate, and I was keeping it where I need to keep it. I have a hole in my heart, and I need to be very careful with how high my heart rate goes. So I try and keep it under about 180, 185 beats per minute. When I'm running, I'm usually in the 140s. My heart rate's in the 140s, and it'll peak around 160, 165. Well, for HIIT, when I was in the 170s and getting close to 180, my asthma was hitting me pretty hard. Before I found out I had a hole in my heart, I would push my heart rate up to 200, and I'd be able to do that fine. Now I'm probably not going to do that anymore, period. But even pushing it into the 170s, climbing to 180, I felt it. I felt my asthma, which is why doing HIIT on a weekly basis, now I'm actually reintegrating it. I'm doing it once a week. I run/walk like 6 times a week. And I'm not saying this is what you should do. I take 1 full day off every week. But walking/hiking/running, you could do this every day. You could walk every day. You probably should walk every day. I do, because I'm training for intense ultras. I'm training for a 100K plus this year. I might run closer to 70, 72 miles in 12 hours. So I do about 6 times a week. HIIT, I'm doing once a week. And I'm only doing it once a week because I'm starting at 0 again, basically, or once a month. So I am consciously upping my HIIT to once a week now, because of the amazing benefits I have felt after these HIIT classes. And strengthening my lungs, I'm feeling the impact of running now because of what I've done in HIIT. High intensity interval training. There's a lot of ways to do this. I actually have my own HIIT classes on my YouTube channel. So if you're watching this podcast episode on YouTube, you can actually go to my YouTube channel and find my yoga workouts for runners and athletes with asthma. And I have yoga sculpt classes that are basically HIIT classes mixed with yoga. I highly recommend you check those out. If you're listening to this as a podcast, I am linking to that same YouTube playlist in the show notes of the podcast. So yoga sculpt is probably my favorite type of HIIT. That being said, I have started to integrate spin classes. Actually, today, I'm going to go to a class that's half spin and half just HIIT with weights. So intervals with weights, burpees, etc. I'm trying to do this like once a week now, and then I am actually not doing yoga sculpt as much, but I am putting classes together and releasing them on the channel. When I put the class together, I am actually doing it. So I'm actually teaching those classes. I'm HIIT certified, so I integrate intervals and cardio mixed with strength into my yoga sculpt classes. So you want to check those out. I highly recommend you check out that playlist linked in the description below on YouTube and in the show notes if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform. Number 4 is yoga. Yoga sculpt, flow yoga, restorative yoga, yin yoga. The big thing with yoga is breath. Yoga has really taught me breath. Breath is so important. I have a ton of different videos and podcast episodes all about using your breath as an athlete with asthma and as a runner. The strong audible exhales, really keeping track and zoning in, calming your mind by focusing on mind and body connection through breath, matching your breath with your movement. I also have restorative and flow yoga classes on my YouTube channel, linked in the description below and in the show notes if you're listening to this as a podcast. The last one is heavy lifting. In high school, I took lifting classes. I actually took classes called strength and conditioning, and we would learn how to lift. We'd also learn how to do some running around the track and some conditioning as well, but it was mainly a lifting class. And I learned all sorts of lifts in high school, but now I really just do 3 lifts, or I focus on 3 and I'll throw some other ones in there. But the main 3 that I do are bench press with kettlebells. I do front squats. I take my kettlebells, pop my shoulders out, and I front squat. And then deadlifts. And deadlifts are so important if you're an athlete with asthma, but also if you are a runner. It's so important for us runners because by building our glutes, I mean, heck, by building our quads, our hamstrings, we are actually protecting our knees, we're protecting our legs. So you want to make sure you're building those muscles. And then bench press, we get to build our upper body as well. The great thing with heavy lifting, we also get to learn how to use our breath. And we want to breathe as we press on the exhale. Breathe out strongly as we press, squat, or deadlift. I throw in some other ones too. I'll do bicep curls and what I call arch curls, which I got from my PT for Human Power. We basically take a towel, put a weight on it if you want, squeeze your toes towards your heel. But I'll throw this stuff in just to mix it up with the main 3. But the point here with asthma is it teaches us how to use our breath for power, because research shows that strong, loud, audible exhales make you more efficient with your energy output in your body. It also expels that CO2, opening your lungs up to take in fresh oxygen. Now, movement or exercise is one of the 3 pillars of healthy living. I lost 40 pounds embracing movement, tracking, and accountability. And more importantly, I have kept the weight off. What I've done is I've put these 3 pillars into a strategy in my healthy living guide that's going to take you less than 2 to 3 minutes to read and start integrating into your life today. You can grab the guide in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube, or in the show notes if you're listening to this, or go to www.athletewithasthma.com/healthy-living guide to grab your free copy today. I'll see you next one.